Welcome to Destiny University 102. I'm Richard Baldwin, your MGA, and in this video, we're going to go into the close, part 2. This is where you're completing the paperwork. Now, in the last video on the close, we're just basically qualifying, trying to find out what that person qualifies for and how much they can afford. And now in this section of the close, we're closing it out, completing the paperwork, and we're walking out of the house with some form of payment. So let's dive right into this video. So now we've pulled out the paperwork and we're going to start writing. Now, the very first question that you need to ask whenever you're filling out the application is, Ms. Johnson, who's your beneficiary going to be? No, you don't want to start with their name. You don't want to start with Ms. Johnson's information. You want to get her beneficiary's name, her primary and secondary beneficiary. And then you're going to write that down in the appropriate areas. And then before you continue writing that application, you want to skip to the back form and start filling out the BEC form. Now, it's important that you do this. A lot of people, they may struggle with BECs, and that's because they wait until the end of the presentation to ask for them. Whenever you ask somebody for a BEC at the end, you're basically asking for a referral. And if you've been in this business any amount of time, you know that usually when you ask for a referral, nobody knows anyone. But when you ask for the BECs right here, it's part of the application process and the prospect has to give you an answer. So you get that information on the first page, then you go immediately to the BEC form and you start filling out. Now, you've already gotten the daughter's name, Jane Johnson, her son, John Johnson's name. And then when you get to the third and fourth BEC name, you want to say, now, remember those cards I showed you, Ms. Johnson. Now, the first one's going to go to you in case you want to make any changes to your plan. Then we're going to get one to your daughter, Jane, one to your son, John, and then who am I going to get those other 2 cards for? Now, these are your emergency contacts. These are people that you trust so that if something happened and Jane and John are so distraught they need help, who do you trust that would be there for your son and your daughter? And then when you say that, you want to break eye contact and get into writing formation. And then they will give you a name. And then you'll write down the other 2 BEC names. And then you want to continue by saying, now, is there anyone else you want to add? And you keep asking, and they'll keep giving you names in a lot of cases. You don't stop writing until they don't have any other names. All right, so then once you get the BECs, then you're going to say, now, obviously, Ms. Johnson, you're not going to be buried in the backyard. Now, if something were to happen, what church would you have your, where would you have your service? What church would that be? And what's the name of the pastor? And collect the pastor's information. This is really important for doing workshops. You want to get that pastor's name. The reason why this is so important is because, and then you want to say to Ms. Johnson, if something happens to you, one of the first people your children are going to call is the pastor of that church that is going to be in. So you want to get that pastor's name so he can know who you are as well. And then what funeral home have you thought about? I know it's a little morbid, Ms. Johnson, but what funeral home would you use as well? We want to make sure that we keep that on record for you as well. So you want to get that funeral home information there. And then, these are things that you can ask. Usually, these last 2 I usually ask before I leave. You want to get the names of the neighbors next door because you want to go and speak to the neighbors as well. So get this neighbor's name. And then, yeah, Ms. Johnson, you said you had diabetes. There's no complications, but who do you know that also has diabetes? We just want to be a blessing to as many people as we can while we're out here. And then you want to get that. Now, remind you that you're going to ask these 2 questions about the neighbor and then her friend, other people with other similar illnesses. You want to ask this at the end. You don't want to do that at this point, but I'm just showing you where to fill it out on your BEC form. So you have your primary and secondary beneficiary. You have the emergency contacts. You got the pastor's name, the funeral director's name. Now you're completing that application. You already have the daughter's information there. You want to go ahead and put Miss Johnson's information there. She is the owner and the applicant, so make sure you fill out all that information. If the owner and the applicant are the same person, you don't have to rewrite her name. You can just write same as above. Then you want to make sure you fill out how much coverage she's getting and all that. Make sure you check all the boxes. Now, in this case, Miss Johnson was final expense. She's going to be a monthly draft. Make sure that you check that you did add that dollar for the accidental death and dismemberment rider. Make sure you check no to all these boxes. Now I have these check marks a lot bigger because you need to make sure you're checking all these boxes. If you miss one of these boxes, Lincoln Heritage will send you a note saying that you need to complete all this stuff. So after you have all this checked, then make sure you call the in-house verification. Now, this is the number that was on your rate book, and you should make sure you keep this in your phone, 800-218-5657, and you're going to be getting a verification number. You want to make sure you write that in this box. It's really important that you do this because it can really protect you. Sometimes people will give you incorrect information, and they can go back and listen to the in-house verification and see that they actually did say no on the verification. So it protects you. So make sure you fill that out. All right, so now once you have completed the application, you want to do the replacement form. Now, if a person has no insurance, you don't have to fill this form out, but I always make sure that I fill one out whether or not a person has insurance or not. Get them to sign it at the top, and then make sure that they print their name here and then their last name in this other space, and then you want to do the same. And then you want to do the bank authorization form. Now, after you've filled all this out, you've done the in-house verification, then you want to basically close them out. Now, Ms. Johnson, all I need at this point is just a check for that $44, and then you go back in the writing form. And a lot of times Ms. Johnson will go and she'll get that checkbook, or she'll say something like, hey, I don't have a checkbook. I do have checking account. So, all right, well, all I need is just your checking information. And as you're filling that out, you want to make sure you put the account number, routing number here, the name of the bank. You also want to make sure you're checking that they're going to start immediately upon receipt of the office, once they receive that in the office, or if they don't want it to start until maybe next week, you want to make sure you check that and then write the day that it's gonna that check is going to clear. And then each draft after that is going to be, in this case, on the 3rd of the month. So you want to check the 3rd. Now, Lincoln Heritage is really great at not necessarily having to be on a certain date. It can be on a particular day. So it could be the 3rd Wednesday of the month or the 3rd Friday of the month. So make sure you do that. Have Ms. Johnson sign it and date it. Now, if Ms. Johnson gives you a check for right then and there, then make sure you leave her a receipt. You only leave a receipt if they've given you a live check that's going to start today. If it's a post-dated check or if it's just an account number and routing number, you do not leave a receipt. All right? And now, if it's a credit card or debit card, you're going to want to make sure you fill this information out down here. This is kind of a review for the how to collect premium form video that we did. You do not want to take the card number. You want to get a sequence number. You're going to want to make sure you call that sequence number that we talked about in the collecting premium, and then check the initial dates when they want to have it start, and then when they want to have their draft going through each month. Have her sign it just like the other ones. Once again, do not leave a receipt for credit or debit card business, because even if they want to start it today, we're not sure if that payment's going to go through or not. So that this receipt is basically their coverage until their policy arrives. This is their proof that they have life insurance, and they really at this point don't have it yet. So make sure you do not leave a receipt for credit card and debit card business. In addition to that, Lincoln Heritage, they do a lot of incentives, trips and things like that. You want to also make sure that you're filling out the FCGS membership form. Put their information down. You want to write, the kind of policy they have, how much you're paying each month. This gives you 10% towards your trip. So let's say you went and wrote, in this case, $43. It's $44 for this. It's going to be an additional 10% added onto that. So like with these trips, you're supposed to hit a certain amount of production. This gives you 10% for each app that you write. You want to make sure that you fill these out. And that is basically it for completing the applications. These are the 4 pieces of paperwork that you're going to want to take with you. You're going to want to make sure you have completed before you leave that house. The application, the replacement form, I think is best practice even if that person doesn't have insurance. You're going to also want to have the bank authorization form and the FCGS membership form. Make sure you have all these completed and signed before you leave that house. Leave that in a leave behind folder and you should be good to go. So that is it for this video. Please watch this over and over again until you get comfortable with what it takes to complete an application and close the prospect out. And with that being said, we will see you on the next video.